All right. Good morning. Good morning. All right. It is 10:30 Central. We always like to start on time and end on time, so we're going to go ahead and dive straight in. Today, we're going to actually be looking at people leverage. A lot of times we think organizational model. We have covered that in an earlier call. This is people leverage. And so we're going to talk about that. And then we're going to tie a bow around those, the 7 habits, those 1 through 3 that we've been working on. So today we're going to review our priorities. We're going to look at how we spend our time. We'll look at our purpose, our values, our roles, our priorities. We're even going to look at trust. And then we're going to tie it together by how to use that to plan a highly effective week. We'll then jump right into that people leverage. And people leverage is how to hire, train, and succeed through others, right? That's the Career Visioning 30, 60, 90 and Success Through Others class. So that's what today is going to look like. So welcome. All right. So we're going to dive right in. Now we're going to do a quick recap of what we've worked on with the 7 habits of highly effective people and what we are working on. And so habit 1, be proactive quadrant. So habit 1 is be proactive. So that's quadrant 2. Those are things that has to be acted upon proactively as opposed to quadrant 1 and 3, which are reacted to. So in quadrant 2, individuals realize I am not a product of limited time. Rather, I'm a product of my chosen responses to circumstances. And to me, that's a really powerful statement. And of course, it's not mine, it's Covey's. I am not a product of limited time. Rather, I'm a product of my chosen responses to circumstances. Habit 2, begin with the end in mind. So that's another quadrant 2 activity, is to take the time and initiate an initiative to develop a mission statement based on principles. So a good mission statement is the key that effective people use to discern which things are important, which things are really worth acting upon. People who spend most of their time in quadrants 1 and 3 begin with no particular objective in mind, sailing through life with no map, no compass, and a very limited vision. So we want to make sure that we are beginning with the end in mind. Because what could be extremely important to one may not be extremely important to another. And what I mean is your mission in life, right? So I'll take, Mother Teresa, an extreme, a big mission statement, right? Like what she wanted to accomplish. So there were certain things that she would do that may not be the most important in your world. There's lots of great things that we can do. Are they the ones that support your mission? Habit 3, put first things first. Habit 3 is the essence of quadrant 2. That's that quadrant we talked about last week, quadrant 2, the prioritizer, putting first things first that are important and in line with one's mission statement. Now, this habit represents the process of completing tasks according to one's highest priorities. People who spend their time in quadrant 1 and 3 put second things first, reacting to pressing, popular, pleasant, and close things, right? Now, habit 4, think win-win. Now, this is for you guys that are reading along with the material. Next week, we're looking at habit 4, think win-win. Forming win-win agreements is also a quadrant 2 activity. Not only does it take real effort, it also requires great communication skills and a high level of trust. Quadrant 3 and 4 may lead to just the opposite, win-lose or lose-win. So we always talk about win-win or no deal, and yet sometimes we think we've got to compromise to get there and things like that. And actually, when we get we use our synergy in those things, we can actually create a great win-win. Habit 5, seek first to understand, then be understood. People with a quadrant 1 mindset where they're always swatting the flies, right? They're only dealing with crisis. They want to do only the expedient thing to be understood. Now, this mindset inevitably leads to conflict and a breakdown of communication. Now, on the other hand, those with that quadrant 2 mindset subordinate their desire to be heard in order to first understand. Understanding requires perceptive observations and empathic listening, and is the essence of effective communication, which is a quadrant 2 activity, right? That's that prioritizer activity. And then habits synergize. In quadrant 1, right, that's the, why did I just lose that thought? Quadrant 1, somebody help me out. Procrastinator. Quadrant 1, that procrastinator. People function independently of others. They resist input from others, and their focus is on efficiency, getting the job done while minimizing conflict. The result is usually an inferior product or a mediocre service. Now, I want us to think of mediocre service. Doesn't mean that maybe somebody thinks that it's good service. What we are, is it filling your potential, right? Conversely, a person with a quadrant 2 mindset actively seeks feedback from people who see things differently from how he or she does, resulting in a better solution or higher quality product or service. And then habit 7, sharpen the saw. Since the habit of self-renewal is not urgent and takes time, most people neglect it. Taking time to sharpen that saw is a fundamental quality 2 activity that affects all of the other habits. Spending time on personal development, prevention, relationship building, and planning are all examples of quadrant 2 activities, and they require action. Okay, so that's kind of the overview, since we haven't done that in a little bit, and of the 7 habits and where they fall into those quadrants that we worked on last week. So let's look at this. So my priorities and how I spend my time. Highly effective people do not manage time, they manage themselves. So while most of the world spins around in quadrant 2, that procrastinator, and we're reacting to urgent matters and managing one crisis after another, people who spend a majority of their time in quadrant 2, they are leading counterbalanced, serene, ordered lives. They are planning and executing according to their highest priorities. Highly effective people are able to manage themselves so well in relation to that precious resource of time, because they live the 7 habits, which are the quadrant 2 activities. Everyone deals with fundamentally important things that, if done on a regular basis, would make a profound difference in the quality of their lives. I think lead generation, I think working out, right? All of these things, spending time with the important people in your life, right? So last week, we actually looked at documenting where we're spending, what quadrants we're spending our time in, so that we have a better estimate of how often we're in quadrant 1, 2, 3, and 4, because we're going to live in all the quadrants. The intent is to spend, right, the 80-20 rule, spend 80% of our life in the 20%, which is quadrant 2. Did anyone document what quadrants you spent time in last week? You have to unmute yourself or put it in the chat box. All right, I'm not getting a lot of yeses, but maybe I'm seeing some people. So that might be something that you jot down really quickly and go, okay, this week then, right? Where am I spending my time? And the easiest way to do that is just go back to your calendar, or during the day. Man, I was dealing with a crisis. All right, that's quadrant 1. And it's not about fault or blame. It's just, let's acknowledge, right? So for instance, I just spent time in quadrant 1 because right before this call starts, the gentleman that mows my yard showed up. Dogs are going crazy. He was supposed to be out here first thing in the morning. It's 10:30 here. I don't consider that first thing in the morning. And yet at some point this morning when he wasn't here, oh, and now I don't get my backyard mowed because the dogs need to be outside because I'm doing this, right? So we all get in there, and yet now I go, okay, what conversation do I need to have with him in the future so this doesn't happen again, right? So we all live in those. So this week, kind of start jotting down. It doesn't have to be 100%, but let's start identifying which hours were, how many hours in quadrant 1, 2, 3, or 4. So something that I'm going to ask you to do right now is take a moment and decide on a plan for how you're going to better meet your quadrant 2 priorities next week. Just take about 30, 60 seconds, write down what is your plan for how you will better meet your quadrant 2 priorities next week. Okay. All right. And Amanda, yeah, I think we've all been there, right? Amanda said, she's between that yes man and that procrastinator. And interesting enough, before, how many of you, before you looked at this, or I'll just speak for myself just for sake of time, when we look at before the first time I read the 7 Habits of Highly Effective and started putting in, I would not have called myself a procrastinator. Yeah. And then you realize, wait, if I'm dealing with a crisis, an emergency meeting, oh goodness, I'm not spending enough time. So really I am procrastinating. I thought, you think, woo, I'm, handling things. And yet really, yeah. So Amanda, yes, some of you guys are shaking your head. So it's very interesting. And yeah, Amanda, I procrastinate on the tasks that I don't love to do. Absolutely. Right. That's that, maybe even avoidance. Maybe that's some of quadrant 4, right? Avoidance activities, pushing things out. All right. Okay. So we're going to raise the bar and we're going to look at our purpose. So now that you're starting to see where you're spending most of your time, we want to start looking at raising that bar, so that we're pulling ourselves out of quadrant 1, 2, and 4 and into quadrant 2. So let's figure out how we can do that. So Catherine Sharp says, sometimes in your life, you will go on a journey. It will be the longest journey you've ever taken. It is the journey to find yourself. So I'm going to ask you to write down the answers to these questions that are on the screen. So where is your journey taking you? What little issues are blocking your energy? What is your purpose? Go ahead and just take a little bit of time and answer those. If you don't know or you're getting stuck on one, write the question down. That might be a question that you work on this week. And just in case you're on the phone, I'm going to restate those questions. Where is your journey taking you? What little issues are blocking your energy? And what is your purpose? Okay. Now, for some of you, this is for my people that feel like you're all alone in this. You are not alone. Don't feel as if you are out of the ordinary if you struggle with this. Many, if not most people do. You're here because you've decided, right? I'm being proactive with my business, with my life. I'm choosing to live that life by design. So there's a lot of uncomfortableness in personal growth. You got to look at some of these things, right? So kudos for you for doing that. Many times thinking about what your first things are can help move you along the path. Keeping your first things first in mind, that actually respond to these following questions, right? Or keeping your first things in mind, I want you to respond to these questions and answer these. Do you really want to pursue and follow your purpose? If so, why? If not, why not? So, what is and isn't working in your life? And you can just, whatever you're taking notes on, just start writing these down. What do you want to change about your life? Before you become overwhelmed, list some small changes you can make right now instead of trying to take on everything at once. And now that you've written down some of the right now things you can do, create several realistic long-term goals and strategies that will move you forward on your journey. And how are you going to hold yourself accountable for following through on your goals and strategies? So now I'm going to stop talking and give you a time to go ahead and start answering these. I'm going to give you just another minute or so. All right, so as you start wrapping those up, remember to listen to your inner voice as you're answering, and thinking about these questions. Forget about what others think of your desire to change. Believe that anything is possible when you're on purpose. Realize that everything happens for a reason when it is supposed to happen, and it's up to you to make it or break it. Okay? All right. So let's look at values. Now, when you were answering the questions about your purpose, did you find that some of your values cropped up? Right? Because as Covey says, you are a disciple, a follower of your own deep values and their source. And you have the will, the integrity to subordinate your feelings, your impulses, your moods to those values. So when you consider what your purpose is, in some ways that's driven by your values, time and life management recognize that people are more important than things. It helps give direction and purpose to the way that you spend each day. So are you living what you believe? So often we say things like, I'm doing this for my family. Do they know that? Could they tell that? Like, are you spending time with them? Right. So those are sometimes we get we have it a lot out, we get out of alignment with that. So, are you beginning to get a feel for where you stand, what your value is, what your purpose is? Now, keep in mind, it's never easy to take a good hard look at one's life. Believing in something makes it possible, though. It doesn't necessarily make it easy. So going through this process will help you have a clear knowledge and understanding of what your biggest priorities really are. So I want you to walk through and answer these questions here. What do you want to contribute? What interests you most? What do you feel passionate about? What is important to you? What do you desire to accomplish? What do you believe in? What is your potential? What do you stand for? What values are most important to you? Go ahead and just start walking through and answering those questions. You take about the next 30 seconds. And for anybody, if you're not having time, because I know just for the sake of time, some of us are going to take longer to answer these questions than others, and that's perfectly fine. Feel free to take a quick screenshot of this page so that you can come back if you want to spend more time answering these questions. All right. Now, some of you, right, you've been on the webinar for a while. We did this exercise a few weeks ago. So it's very possible, right, that those came. For others of you, that may have been the first time, so there was a challenge there. Either place is exactly right for you, right? So the next step is to look at the roles that you play and how we can balance them all, or, right, counterbalance. So when we look at the roles we play, we all play different roles in our world, right? Brian Moore says there comes a point in many people's lives when they can no longer play the role they have chosen for themselves. When that happens, we are like actors finding that someone has changed the play. Well, in habit 2, you listed the roles that you play each day, right? So how do your roles tie in with habit 3 and your first things? So that goes, how do they tie in with your purpose and your values? As you plan your week using your chosen calendar, right, be sure to schedule activities for each key role. So we made again, this was a few weeks ago, but now's a good time to kind of reevaluate and go, what are the roles, the key roles that you play in your life? So like I have the role of a sister, a business owner, an agent, a daughter, a runner, a doggy owner, an aunt. Maybe it's you're a mom, you're a daughter. Like, what are the key roles in your world? And beside the key role, jot down an activity that you're going to schedule in the coming week for each one of them. Now, as you schedule that activity, it might not be a specific task or assignment. Now, it could be have lunch with, celebrate a birthday. It also could be a better listener, right? Maybe your parent, under your role as a parent, be a better listener. The key question is, what is the most important thing you can do in this role that week, right? What's that one thing that you do, it makes everything else easier or unnecessary? So what is your role? And what is a specific task or assignment for each one of those roles? And if you have questions around this, unmute yourself and ask, or type it in the chat box. We're monitoring that and we'd be happy to ask. But right now, what is the specific, what are your roles? What's one thing that you're going to do this week for each one of those roles? So Andi, I always have such a hard time thinking of one thing to do. So that's part of, right, because we have this, we want to do all things, and yet first things first. So ask yourself, what's the one thing that if I did that would make everything else easier or unnecessary?
I've heard that question so many times, and it's just so hard for some reason. I can't, there's not one thing that I feel that I could do that would make everything else fall to the wayside. I always feel like there's so many things.
There are, and so I think it's not that they fall to the wayside. What we do is we go, well, if we did that and we weren't able to do these other things, would we have moved that relationship forward? Would we have made an impact or a difference? So give me an example of one of the roles.
Okay, so mother.
Okay, so what could be something that what's something that you've been thinking that you would like to do in your role as a mother?
Oh, I'd love to pay off my daughter's college debts.
Okay. Because we're thinking about what can we do in the next week? So if let's say the goal is to pay off your daughter's college debt,
mm-hmm.
What could you do in the next week that would move us closer to that?
Just sell more houses. I don't know.
Do you know how much her debt is?
Yeah, it's 40,000.
Okay. Do you have a plan?
No.
Of how to do that?
No.
Okay. Maybe that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's create a plan.
Mm-hmm.
Or payback system, or maybe it's paying $40 on that, or $2 or $25.
Okay.
So because we want to take that big thing and chunk it backwards.
Right.
Yeah. And then does that help though?
It helps, but so I have this list, like you do: sister, business owner, aunt, agent, blah blah blah. I have all these things too. I have mother, wife, friend, sister, agent, doggy owner as well. All these things I can think of at least one, maybe more things for each one.
Do you want one for each one of those?
Right.
Yep.
So, but I don't know if that's going to solve all the problems, but you're saying it doesn't have to solve it right away, and it doesn't have to solve all of the issues, just maybe, because I'm a rescuer. I do the animal rescue. And how can I prevent people from going and buying dogs, breeders,
Uh,
as opposed to,
yeah. So remember when and I love that you bring this up, Andi, remember when we talked about the circle of influence and the circle of concern?
right?
So that's what we're limiting it to the roles, and we want to, figure out like 6 to 7 roles, or no more than 6 or 7, and then go, okay, yes, I would love to solve the problem of, puppy mills. Then I want you to come back into your area of influence and say, like, circle of concern, can I solve the entire world's problem on that today, this week?
Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah. And yet, so what could I do that's in my circle of influence?
Okay. What could I do? I post it, I promote it, I do it all the time.
Okay.
I have conversations with people and explain to them why it's bad, and that actually AKC inbreeds dogs instead of, they allow mother, son, father, daughter breeding.
So that's what you're doing, right? So one of those pieces you're going to put in your schedule this week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it pretty much happens almost daily.
Okay. Yeah. So that's where what's the most important thing you can do in that role this week?
Mm-hmm.
And that would be it. Or that's what it sounds like, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
For just that one thing. For
just that one thing.
Title.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because that's what happens. Sometimes what happens is we set this goal and we want everything to be done today.
Mm-hmm.
That's not how the world works. That's just doesn't work that way, right? So just like okay, this is the global challenge.
Mm-hmm.
What can I impact? It kind of makes me think about that story where the person is walking down, a kid and I'm going to butcher it, the kid and their parent maybe are walking down the beach, and you've got these, maybe, was it not oysters,
Starfish.
Thank you, all the starfish. And the little boy's picking them up, throwing them in the back in the ocean, and the grown-up said, why are you doing that? You're not going to be able to get to everybody. He goes, yeah, but I changed that one's life, right?
Right.
So yeah, that's our circle of influence versus circle of concern.
Okay.
So yeah, thank you though, because I'm sure you weren't the only one that gets challenged by. We have all these things. We're going to narrow them down because we start making strides in these things, and then we can be able to continue to bring and make additional changes.
Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay. Now, the piece that once you've identified these items, you're going to transfer that to your planner, right? Now, so when we talk about the 411, it would actually go in your 411. This is how you start narrowing down when we have a challenge with what goes in our 411, is you take those roles, right? Because you got the personal and the business, and you go, okay, these are the personal roles. Let me put it in my 411. Awesome. This is the thing that I'm going to do this week. Now where does that go in our planner, right? And now let's look at priorities. The key is not to prioritize what's on your schedule, Covey says. It is to schedule your priorities. So scheduling your life around your highest priorities may seem daunting. In reality, it's a simple, clear process that will move you forward on your journey if you're clear about your priorities first. So write down your top 5 priorities right now. Now that you have your top 5 priorities, have you thought about delegating anything? Like, is it realistic to think that you can accomplish all 5 of these priorities that you listed? Right now, some people think delegation as giving up control or admitting that we can't do it all. Well, so what? The reality is that no one can do it all with excellence at all time. So delegating to qualified others frees you up to put your energy into the things that are truly your highest priority. So look at that list that you wrote down, your top 5 priorities. Make sure that they are in order of importance. So if need be, rewrite those in order of priority. Now look at your 4th and 5th priority. Decide how you could delegate at least a small part of each to someone else so that those things continue to move forward with minimal effort on your part. And then think, is there anything in the first 3 that you could also delegate as well? Go ahead and record that. Write out your plan. Who, what, now, some people think delegation is giving up control or admitting you can't. Oh, sorry. We've talked about it. Let's look at the list of your priorities. You've got it rewritten in order of priority. You have now determined that there are probably things that could be delegated. Effective delegating to others is perhaps the single most powerful high leverage activity that there is, according to Covey. Now, some of you may have went through the last exercise thinking there's no one you can trust to do these things. You may think it's faster or easier to do it yourself, and yet does that allow others to grow and develop? It takes time and patience to develop trust in others. So think about those things. Are you, what kind of delegation do you assign? Stewardship or gopher? Look at that list from the perspective of stewardship delegation. Begin building trust by offering opportunities for growth. Okay. All right. And then we talked about weekly planning. So you've written down your key roles. You've selected your 1 or 2 of your highest priorities to focus on this week. Put those in your calendar, right? So that's how we're tying everything that we've worked for so far in those 7 habits of highly effective people. Okay, we're going to do this last piece, and then we're going to spend the last 20 minutes on that people leverage. So I want you to go back through your notes, write down your aha. What's your aha? What's your takeaway? Now, the beauty of an AHA is it gives you an opportunity to identify what behaviors should change now that you have clarity. So identify and write down what behavior will you change. You're going to also identify what tools that you will use. So maybe the behavior that you're going to change is to buy a calendar or write it down in your calendar, right? That's the behavior and the tools that you're going to need to change that. What does accountability for this look like for you? And what will this allow you to achieve? So I'm going to give you about 2 minutes to answer these questions.
Olivia, can I just ask you to show us the previous screen one more time? I didn't get to screenshot it.
This one?
Yes, thank you.
Awesome. All right. So I want to what are you, and Andy, thank you for your post, right? You don't have to solve the problem tomorrow. It's what am I making movement toward that? Who else? Somebody else, maybe an AHA or something that you learned today or you're going to implement or was reminded of.
I just emailed my virtual assistant and said, hey, contact these bookkeepers for me and find out their fees and if they're taking new clients.
Perfect. Right? Like there's, and Jesse, that's awesome. Cause we all tend to do that. Like I've got to do it and go, wait, no, absolutely. That can be handled by them. Perfect. Love it. All right. So we're going to go ahead and that's going to wrap our bookend for this part of what we're looking at with the 7 habits. And then let's look at people leverage. So people leverage, that is career visioning, 30, 60, 90, success through others. This is the model, right? Career visioning, 30, 60, 90, success through others. That is the model of people leverage. Now, this does not take the place of career visioning, and you owe it to yourself to take that course multiple times. Today, the intent is just to whet your appetite and help you know what you don't know, right? Because sometimes we don't know if a course is important because we don't know what we don't know. So we're going to dive in and look at this. So the career visioning, we call this the CV process, career visioning CV. The career visioning process is all about the candidate. So we first determine if they have the knowledge, skills, and track record and the personality and culture in order to continue moving forward. So this is what we're doing in our screening interview. Do they have the knowledge, skills, track record, personality, and culture to get the green light to move forward to the next level? What is the culture of your business? So we decided that the culture of our business was people that didn't smoke. Now, the reason that as a former smoker, just don't like it, don't want to be around it. And so that was part of our culture. We didn't want somebody that, cusses a lot. As someone who does that, right? It was important to me not to be around more people, and then anyways, it grows. It doesn't mean that never, but what is the culture? Do these people already demonstrate your culture, right? So that's what happens in the screening interview. The second interview, we are objectively evaluating the candidate through a series of powerful, in-depth interviews and skill assessments as necessary. I think sometimes we forget about that. So is there a certain skill we want them to have? If I'm interviewing an ISA or an OSA, basically, right, the way what we call a telemarketer, I'm going to have them take a skill assessment of being on the phone, of making calls, of using scripts. If it is an admin, I'm going to have them do a task. So whenever when I hired mine, one of the assessment skills was a typing test. Google, how well do you know Excel? And I had him write a blog post, right? Like, what are the skills? So pay special attention here. What skill levels are needed to assess for that position? Now, let's say we still have a green light. We move to step 3. We learn from others. We learn about this candidate from others. This is when we're doing our 3 deep reference checks and getting perception from people that are not us. Now, often we fall in love with the person before completing the process. Hold back that, just hold back from that. That process may feel long and arduous, and yet we want to always go 3 deep with those references. I'll tell one on myself. KPA was great. Interviews were great. Fell in love. I'd only taken, now back then we were using Recruit Select. I'd taken it for the first time. I knew everything I needed to know, right? Yeah, I didn't go 3 deep. And so I did not discover that she had a little bit of a cocaine issue. So she missed work a lot. So there, like, literally my brother, who is a bail bondsman, picked her up from the office one day because she missed court. Yeah, go 3 deep, right? And it cost us, something for not doing that. So call the references. There is a form that you'll use so that when we say 3 deep, hey, name, you get there, there's a list of questions that you find out about this person. And then who else do you know that I could talk to about their experience with this candidate? Because let's face it, you're not putting references that are going to trash you. So we want to get to a deeper level. So let's say that we ask Dan, and Dan says, oh, you should talk to Keith. Keith also had interactions with Joanne. Maybe he could tell you more. So you call Keith, you get his perspective. And then, so, hey, Keith, who else do you know that knows X that I could speak with so that I could get more insight and perspective? Keith says, oh, you should talk to Mary. See, now we're getting 3 levels. We're getting enough separation from that original reference that we are really going to find out what's what. So Mary is either going to say, oh gosh, let me tell you about her. Or you're going to get a glowing reference. If you aren't 3 deep, you're not going to get enough perspective to know if this is the right hire, okay? Then step 4, you set your future employee up for success. So this is going to be going through setting commitments, making sure they know what the training is going to be and what standards they have to hit. This is the other piece that I see a lot of times. We hire people and then we go, oh, what do we want to do? Well, now, right, like your job is to set them up for success. Now, if you did it, hey, it is what it is. Now let's get to that as fast as possible, right? Now these are the 9 steps to hiring. You sign up for the People Leverage series, right? It's an entire course to ensure you hire, train, and lead well. A lot of times people go to career visioning and go, what? No, that's just one. You want to go through all 3 of them and don't cheat the process. So create the job description and missing persons report. Do a screen test. That's the resume, phone, or in-person interview. Verify the KPA. That's going to help you with their behavior, thinking, the thought process interview, life story, motivational interview, group interview, reference checks, and the defense, right? To make sure that you didn't fall in love with somebody. You want to defend that hire, right? So through career vision, they'll teach you all of that. And yet it's, do they have the knowledge, skills, and track record within your culture, thinking, and behavior? Because maybe they have the knowledge, skills, and track record, but they don't fit your culture. Well, then they're not a right fit. Maybe they fit your culture. They don't have the knowledge, skills, and track record yet, right? We want all of those to match. So let's talk about the KPA, Keller Personality Assessment. It is a magical tool and one of the greatest tools we have. There are behavioral traits and thinking traits being assessed. Now, keep in mind, this is not a test. It does not it doesn't test their, education. It is a behavioral assessment. Andy, where can I find the KPA? So if you've taken it, typically your MCA will have a copy of that. You can request that. Your KPA, and always ask them for your job fit report. Okay. So the KPA measures 7 behavioral traits, organized as either primary or modifier. In addition, it also measures 4 thinking traits. So the primary traits: how assertive, sociable, responsive, structure, adaptability, intensity, optimism, and then thinking, logical problem solving, rapid fire problem, spatial visualization, and vocabulary. Now, how does all of this fit? So you just heard me share with Andi about the job fit report. When someone takes an assessment, you want to always make sure that it's matched to that job, okay? Because it's going to say, okay, this is where, like if you look at logical problem solving, this is where you want a candidate, and this is where if they're in this, they're a better fit for this because of this, right? So are they on that line? Now, I always take a minute to say this. Sometimes we might get our own KPA back and go, oh my gosh, it doesn't say I'm a mega, or it doesn't say. It's only 25% of the hiring. And if you own the business, you get to hire the people that support you. So does that make sense? Like, so that's where it helps you. I think of Steve Chater. He helped write Hold, big mega agent, been on stage with Gary Keller, and his assessment says he's not a mega agent. It doesn't matter. He knows who he is, so he knew who to bring in to support that, right, to grow the business, okay? But the KPA shows how well the candidate matches the job in these areas, all right? And it'll say they're a high fit, or maybe these are the things that we want to ask questions around and that type of thing. The trait definitions behavior. Behavioral traits describe how a person acts. Individuals who score at the highest and lowest points have more pronounced characteristics. So we're not going to get really deep in this just for time, and yet pull your KPA and read this so that you really understand what this looks like, and then go to career visioning, go to the people leverage series. Now, the thinking traits, we're going to get a little bit into this. Logical problem solving, rapid fire problem solving, spatial visualization, and vocabulary. Now, what not preferred and preferred means is how that not preferred, it's not about not preferred for the job. It is how is it preferred? What does the candidate prefer, if that makes sense? So let's take vocabulary, because sometimes this one's misinterpreted. Let's say someone is low on vocabulary. It's not because they can't string a sentence together. What it actually is assessing is their preferred way of doing things. It's how they use their learning experience or vocabulary. So let's say that someone, it shows that someone who is not the preferred into the vocabulary, they might need to express their ideas or what they learn through a graph. It might be that it's hard for me to get it out of my head through my vocabulary, but I can draw it, or I can't write. So it's about their preferred. What do they prefer? How do they prefer? Lean on that side of vocabulary. Now, the cool part is if you know that, then if you have, let's say you've got that person you're hired and they're trying to tell you something and get it out, and they're having a hard time, or you're not tracking with them, you could say, you know what? Here's a pen, have them write it out, have them chart it out. That's where, so it doesn't mean that, oh, low vocabulary, they're not smart. It has nothing to do with that. It's the transition from the brain out of the mouth, right? Or how they learn. So this is why it's so important that we really have a great understanding of the KPA, and we run it against whatever role that they fit, okay, or the role that we're hiring for. And even within your organization, if you're going to take somebody from, I don't know, admin to director of ops, or showing partner to buyer's agent, rerun the role in that, right? Okay, the CV process. So we talked about the CV process being all about the candidate. What do we know? How do we know? The 30, 60, 90 is about you. So we first determine if they have the knowledge, skills, and track record, the personality and culture in order to continue moving forward, right? That's what we did during the screening interview. Then we complete their pre-work. So we identify the SMART goals for the 20% activities that's going to propel your new hire to success. We plan the training necessary. The intent is not for them to know everything about the job in 90 days. That's going to take years. The intent is for them to be able to do the top 20% of the job in 90 days. You're going to set expectations, clearly communicate to your new hire that they are only being hired 30 days at a time, and present the SMART goals in the 20% that you expect them to accomplish. Evaluate the talent in that first 90 days, consistently measuring the results of the activities and providing feedback, and ensure ongoing alignment. If there's sufficient evidence of talent to continue doing business beyond 90 days, that 30-60-90 will set you up with the tools and processes you need to ensure you're continue in that alignment with the goals to come. They earn the job. In the first 90 days with a new hire, as you're preparing for success, your initial support and supervision will be high. As your new hire hits milestones and masters their 20% through training, your support and supervision can decrease. It doesn't decrease on day one. Through achievement, they earn the right to own their job. We've been talking a lot about that on those Tuesday night calls. So that's as deep as we're going to go into that today. There are sample 30-60-90s on every role you can imagine. You get them when you go through career visioning. They're also on KW. Pull those. Are those, what edits are we doing? And are they focused on them owning their 20%? So we've done the pre-work. We've clarified then we're going to go to expectations. We're going to clarify their expectations for what they will achieve in that 30-60-90. We build their confidence in achieving goals with a training plan. We reiterate that they're hiring 30 days at a time, and we attain commitment to that accountability schedule. Step 3, we're evaluating. Are they nailing that 20%? Simply completing an activity or checking it off on a to-do list, that's not how talent performs. So don't focus on evaluating the performance in any of their 80%. You want to identify whether or not that new hire is a talented performer in their 20% activities, or those activities that will generate the greatest results. So when we're evaluating in that 30-60-90, we're going to review their 30-60-90. We're going to look for evidence from the new hire's weekly 411. You're going to ask yourself, am I setting up this new team member for success? Are we still following the 30-60-90 plan? Am I providing the training that aligns with their 30-60-90? Am I holding them accountable with their 411s? Based on the answers, you may find that there are opportunities that you need to step up on for better support your new hire and them for success. Or it might be, okay, it's time for us to part ways. I think sometimes we go, well, we've got to wait the entire 90 days. No. Every week we're evaluating, do they have a green light or a red light? Okay. Okay, so this is a quick piece that I want to look at. And guys, we're almost, I know we're right at 11:30. We'll be finished in like 3 to 4 minutes. So if you need to hop out, that's fine, but I'm going to go ahead and continue. So if you have to hop out, you can come back in and listen to this. Non-talent brings you problems, doesn't fulfill your needs, and ends up giving you back pieces of the job. Doesn't know what they want and isn't searching, requires pushing, may not know where the existing bar is set or even what bar you're talking about. They don't care who they spend time with, and repels talent from them. When they try to talk action and results, they can't back it up. Talent finds solutions, shares your goals and fulfills your needs, knows what they want or is actively searching to know, pushes you, is continually raising the bar, demands to be associated with talent and attracts talent to them, and talks the language of action and results. That's a great piece when you bring in somebody to keep going back. Talent, they show up as talent or non-talent. Well, after your new hire has become fully contributing team member, continue to assess whether they are an active and integral part of your organization. If not, ask yourself what what can they do differently, or what can be done differently to get them there. So this is that success through others. There's a 3-step process. I do it, we do it, they do it, and theirs. One is about the job, right? I do it, we do it, that's a job. Now they start to do it, that's a business, and then it belongs to them. Now you're moving toward that empire builder. Throughout this process, use evidence to align opportunities so you can rate their performance. Do they exceed standard and seek new opportunities in this piece of their 20%? Are they frequently exceeding, occasionally meeting standards, frequently meet standards, occasionally? So this gives you an idea of, you know, how can you rate their performance in their top 20%? And the challenge of every business to make its world big enough so that everyone can achieve their goals. All right, so this is where we're going to wrap today. Again, the people leverage we reviewed today, it is a very quick overview. I bring it up because I want to whet your appetite and understand, since we're working in that business plan, you know, are you creating that growth plan? Are you going, well, if I'm looking to be more than one person in this role, where do I have career visioning in my training plan? It's not about going once. It's, am I really doing this at a high level? All right, guys. So it is 11:33. I want to hear from you though, real quick. What is your takeaways? What questions do you have from this part of what we've talked about today?
I will say one thing.
Okay.
Even though you know that I want to do everything at one time, and I struggle with that, then you drill me in and say, you know, we got to do one thing. But I will tell you, when you hire the right people, it feels different. Even though I get a little impulsive, and you know I do. But anyway, it definitely feels different. So if it doesn't feel right, don't keep going on.
That I'm so happy that you said that. So a lot of times that's what we, especially the first hire or so, we start going, well, but I didn't do this and I didn't do this. Now, should there be some self-reflecting in there? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And you should feel an immediate difference. Yes. Week 1, week 2. It doesn't take 90 days for you to go, all of a sudden a magical light came on. No, you start feeling that difference almost immediately. Yeah. Perfect. All right. Anything else before we wrap today? All right. Well, then that's my time. If there's anything you do have questions about or anything, just reach out to me. Otherwise, that's where we'll end today. Have an amazing rest of your week, and we'll talk soon. Bye.